Hey guys, Uncommon Ramen here. I want to say about 2 weeks ago, as of the filming of this video, I went down to a friend's, actually one of my best friends' houses to celebrate their birthday. And one of the games that we played was this beautiful gem of a game, Twisted Fables, which I had seen on Kickstarter, but because of the type of game that it was, which is kind of a mimic of a 2D fighter, and my distaste for 2D fighters on console platforms, because I'm just downright bad at them. I didn't give it a chance. And the thing is that I had previously played a game by Level 99 Games called Exceed. Um, and despite having played it and really enjoyed it, I still, for whatever reason, didn't give this guy a chance in the Kickstarter arena. And because of that, I have since picked it up in its deluxe edition, because after playing it with my buddy, I couldn't not grab this game. It was just such a phenomenal game to play. So I actually overpaid for the deluxe edition by like $25, just because I think they were doing the deluxe edition for $75 on their Kickstarter campaign. And so, but the game itself, I don't have enough time to talk about why I think it's so great. But let's start first off by looking at the art here. So Twisted Fables is a game about taking fables like Red Riding Hood, Alice in Wonderland, Mulan, and twisting their story into a kind of like a futuristic, dystopian, kind of almost horror twist on them, which is why they're called Twisted Fables. And the idea behind this is, like I said before, it's like a simulator of a 2D fighter, and you are piloting one of these characters, and fighting against another character, with the storyline being that you're trying to basically save the world from destruction. I want to show you the back of this box too, because they did really good art on the back too, and it has a couple other characters here. So right here we have Snow White, Scheherazade, Little Mermaid, Sleeping Beauty, and Dorothy. And like I said, they twisted the stories to be sometimes more along the horrific side. That's where we got Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, and sometimes more along the side of just downright strange, where Dorothy is in Little Mermaid, and even Scheherazade for that matter. It's just the art is phenomenal. So I want to jump into what's inside this box, which I'm sure you can find that information on Kickstarter. But so when you open up the box, we have the art of Twisted Fables. So they give you in the deluxe edition a big old book here that is pretty much strictly art, but it has little blurbs in here about each of the characters and where their inspiration came from, and kind of how they differentiated from whatever tale that they were borrowing from. And the book it's got every character in here. In the deluxe edition, there are 4 characters available in it that are available as expansion characters for different or for the non-deluxe edition. You can just kind of see the art here, which you're going to see on all the cards anyway. But yeah, just this is Match Girl from I think it was Hans Christian Andersen did a story about a girl who was freezing to death, and so Match Girl was based off that. So that's where that comes from. Then we have our rule books. So let me pull this guy out. And the rule book is really well set up. Talks about the components that we should see in here. The minis, which are available to the deluxe edition. I don't think they did minis for the normal edition because they had cardboard standees for them. Talks about how you play your turn, the difference between the basic skills and the specific skills to each character. The 2v2 mode, which again I think is part of the deluxe edition. There's a relic mode, which has little small cards that populate the board that you can interact with. And then they go into the story, the actual story of each of the characters, as well as advantages for the characters, disadvantages, and some tips on how to play them. The tips are more reminders than they are tips. As you read through them, you're going to kind of see there's like one or two of them where there's an actual tip to it, and the rest of them are just kind of are reminders of this is how this interacts, and so on and so forth. But they cover all the characters, and in the deluxe edition one, obviously, this rulebook also covers the expansion characters, so Little Mermaid and Match Girl, and Dorothy and Scheherazade. So that is our rulebook. The next thing we're going to look at is the tray with the characters themselves, as well as the character boards. I'm actually going to pull that off camera because it's a little big. But we have these little character boards. And on the character boards, we have a couple things that we're going to be looking at here. We have right here life and where you hit death, basically. You're also going to have a track here for your defense. And then at the bottom, you're going to have a track specifically for power, and this is how you buy things. And then, so if we move to the bottom here, you have your character sheets, and these character sheets are just supposed to slot in to the board so that you know which character you're playing. And each of the characters kind of tells you, you know, right here, her max HP is 30, so you're going to put her on 30, and then her max defense is 6, and then her epic is 15. So when she hits 15 HP, which these are marked, you can barely tell, but when she hits 15 HP, she gets to add an epic card to her deck and gives her a bit of an edge. And each of the characters is different. So like we have 34, 6, and 17, as well as some setup rules, which it'll tell you over here what the setup rules are. It'll tell you about your skill supply decks and what's available to you. She's 42, 6, and 21. 32, 6, and 16. 34, 3, and 17. So she has very low defense, but she also has a special ability that makes her more defensive. 32, 6, and 16. 36, 3, and 18, but she plays very unusually. She uses tentacles more than she uses her own attacks. 36, 6, and 18. 40, 6, and 20. And then Scheherazade is 36, 6, and 18. 6 is the average defense, with 3 being on the low side. But again, that's just looking at that stuff. Then we have the minis. Again, this is part of the deluxe Kickstarter, so I don't know if the standard edition gets minis because they have cardboard standees, but this one is Sleeping Beauty in her awakened form. And here we have Scheherazade. Next up we have Alice and the Cheshire Cat that she created. And next up we have Mulan. Followed by Match Girl. We got Red Riding Hood. Snow White. Kaguya. Dorothy. And then last up, we have Little Mermaid, who is riding on one of the tentacles that she has. Can't get a good focus on this. But anyway, Little Mermaid riding her little tentacle. So those are the minis that are available for the Deluxe Edition. I think the Twisted Fable tracks, these guys, are available in both the Standard Edition and the Deluxe Edition. Because they use pegs to keep track of things. And I just think that that's a standard thing. I'm not 100% sure on that, but pretty sure. Next up, we have the mat that you're going to play on. And this mat, I think, also is part of the Deluxe/Standard Edition. I don't think it is specific to either one. It's a neoprene mat. There we go. It's a neoprene mat. So you can roll this guy up. And it's one of those where it's stitched at the edge, which is just really good quality. And just all around was really beautifully done. And if you've ever played Exceed or even the BattleCon fighting system, the Endines games, it's not that different. It's just a fighting track that you move along and trying to put yourself in a strategic position so that you can hit your opponent and make it difficult for them to hit you back. Next, we are going to look at the pegs that go for the board. So these little plastic pegs go inside your board to keep track of different things on your board. So for instance, these little red pegs are health pegs. Okay? And then our little yellow peg here, if I can get this to focus on it, is a defense peg. So this is where you would put your shield peg into the shield slot and indicate where you are in your shields. And then our little purple peg here indicates where your epic hits. So as soon as your health meets or passes this epic peg, you would remove it from the board and then add your epic card to your deck. And so this is just a reminder peg of where your epic is, since each character is a little bit different. And then finally, we have this little peg here. The blue peg keeps track of power, which again is your buy power. So as you're playing cards, you're going to be moving this peg up on the track to indicate how much power you have. And then you can utilize that power to buy cards. So these pegs are all plastic, and I think, again, are part of both the Standard/Deluxe Edition. So you should expect them in either version. And last but not least, we're going to look at these counters. as far as components are concerned, we'll look at the cards afterward. These counters are all plastic, and these are not the standard edition. So these are part of the deluxe edition of the game. You're going to receive cardboard versions of each of these counters, but these are just the counters for each of the different characters on what different abilities they have. So for instance, we have some tentacle tokens here, which are just Little Mermaid's little tentacles that go around. We have these little blue and red. They're blue on one side, red on the other side. These are Scheherazade's fate tokens, and these are used to mark supply decks so that your opponent can't buy things without taking damage, certain things without taking damage. We have, I believe these guys right here are for Dorothy, and these are, I can't remember what the name of the tokens are called, but she uses them with certain abilities to increase their power. And so there's a bunch of these, and then we have what I believe right here are for Sleeping Beauty, and these are awakening tokens. And these awakening tokens indicate how much time before she awakens, and when she awakens, she gets significantly more powerful. And then the last token here, I think was for Mulan, and these are chi tokens. They keep track of how much chi she has because she modifies some of the stuff she does based on the amount of chi she has. So like I said, these tokens all have a cardboard counterpart that you get with the standard edition, but when you get the deluxe edition, you get these neat little plastic versions, which is a small thing, but a small thing that just really makes it that much neater on top of having the miniatures as well. If you backed it on Kickstarter, you had the option of buying sleeves with it, and the sleeves that they give you in it are all right. I did not back it on Kickstarter. I bought it on eBay, and so mine did not come with sleeves, so I had to go buy sleeves. These are standard American board game size cards for the main cards. The relics are a little bit different, which I'll talk about later. So if you want to go out and buy sleeves for this game, you're going to want to get the standard American. I used the standard American Gamegenic sleeves, and they worked out really well. So I'm just gonna pull out some of these cards here. So these are the cards that we're gonna receive for each of the characters. They're a little bit different, so I'm gonna sift through these really quickly here so I can get to the epics and put those aside. So this is the character Snow White, and she has 3 different supply decks. She's gonna have her movement-oriented skill supply deck, which is gonna consist of a yellow bordered Shattered Passage, followed by 2 blue bordered Shattered Truths, and then what is called a twist. When you buy the second Shattered Truth and you expose the twist card, the twist isn't something you buy. The twist is something that just happens automatically. So as you're purchasing through here and you hit these twists, this thing is going to it's going to become a passive ability on top of any other passive abilities that you have to help make your character a little bit more powerful. And then below that, we're going to have 3 versions of Shattered Destiny, which if you read the cards, Shattered Passage and Shattered Destiny, there's only small differences between them. They're just indications of the ability becoming more powerful, right? And then at the very bottom of the Shattered Destiny stack, once you've gotten that far, you get what's called Poison Purity, which is another twist. It's a passive that actually is cumulative with any other Poison Purities, which is the bottom stack of all the Snow White cards. So you would basically set this stack up like this face up. Now, the yellow card is something that starts in your starter deck. So this card isn't actually going to be there. You're going to have these cards available. And so there's 5 cards that you can purchase, and 2 cards that are twists that just happen automatically after you purchase. And they're just indications, or they're just a stack of cards to help make one card become a little bit more powerful. So like Shattered Passage here is the base form of Shattered Destiny. So despite the fact that you will end up still occasionally running across this card and playing it, you obviously have more of a chance of pulling your Shattered Destinies, which are more powerful than the Shattered Passage. And then if you look, they're the same with each stack. So here we have Shard Storm, which is the base level of this version, this skill attack. Below that, you're going to have Shard Tempest, which is a slightly more powerful version of Shard Storm. Then once you purchase past those two, you're going to receive your Twist, which is Crystal Coffin, which will have a passive effect that affects you throughout the course of the game. And then below that, you're going to have Shard Vortex, which is an even more powerful version of Shard Storm or even Shard Tempest. And then below that, you'll have yet another Poison Purity. So the idea here is to try and get to these Poison Purities, because these Poison Purities help to create more powerful poisons, which is Snow White's MO here. She's going to give poisons, which I'll show you later. And then finally, her skill defense. They're going to have one skill move, one skill attack, and one skill defense. In this case, her skill defense is Tainted Offering, followed by Tainted Feast, which again is just a more powerful version of the card, followed by Corrupted Destiny, the Twist, and then Tainted Maelstrom, which is a more powerful version of both the previous cards, and then Poison Purity. Okay, and then, so in the setup, it talks about poisons, which I'm going to go into before we go into the epics. The poison deck is separate from the rest of these cards and is specific to Snow White. No other character is going to use the poison deck. This is something that is specifically Snow White. And it is set up very similar to the other decks, where we have yellow cards on top, followed by blue cards, followed by red cards. And as you look at these cards, you'll see that the blue card is slightly more powerful than the yellow card, and the red card is slightly more powerful than either card. This deck is not meant to be shuffled. You're supposed to use all your yellow poisons before you use your blue poisons, and then use all your blue poisons before you get to your red poisons. And certain cards will indicate when you give poisons and what happens when somebody has poisons in their discard pile. So this is the way that Snow White, her early game is about getting the poisons in the deck, and her late game is about making those poisons insanely powerful and chipping away at your opponent in a downward spiral. So she gets what you want to do is make sure she's defended well enough to get these poisons in the deck, and then just watch your opponent slowly but surely die because they can't do anything with these poisons, basically. And then the last thing that you're going to find are epics, and these epics are going to be really powerful cards that you'll have one of in your deck, and you cannot have, unless you're Dorothy, more than one epic at any given time. So when you hit your epic threshold on your board, you'll add one of these three cards to your deck, and then you will discard the rest of those cards. They will no longer be a part of the game. And these cards vary in what they do. So when you're adding it, just add it based on the play style that you're using. And each of them, like I said, is extremely powerful by comparison to most of them. And if you backed the deluxe version of the game, they provided a full art foil version of each epic card for each character. So that's the extra that you get for backing the Kickstarter version, or buying the Kickstarter version, which is what I did. On top of all of that, each of the characters has their own divider, so you can tell which character is which by just checking the divider on the inside. And then we have the basic cards, which are available right here, which I'll go into as well. Let's see here. We'll do a quick look at each of the characters, I suppose, because I don't want to, I looked at one, we might as well look at them all. So Match Girl is a character who's based on wishes. Her whole idea is she has a deck that is specific to her, just like Snow White has her own specific deck. And this deck is made up of wishes, specifically matches. And the matches benefit your opponent in some degree, but they also benefit you a lot more. And as you play the game with the Match Girl, the matches actually start to benefit you a lot more than they benefit your opponent, especially as you get to the bottom of some of these decks. So the first thing that you need to know about her is that she needs to be constantly in melee range of the opponent so that she can give away these matches. And then as you look through some of the cards that are available to her, you can see things like this, which help to mitigate the matches on their placement as to where they are. You can see cards like this where you get extra damage for spending extra power. The matches that you give your opponent, when they play them, you get the power for them, not your opponent. So as opposed to normal basic skills, when you play them, you are going to receive 1 power for each symbol that they give you. So if you're playing a 1 attack, you're going to receive 1 power. If you're playing a 2 attack, you're going to receive 2 power. With the match, your opponent can use it like a wild card where they get 1 of any symbol they'd like, but they get 0 power for it because you get the power for it. So your character can build up power much better than most characters. And because of that, we have cards like this, Requite Wish, that get extra damage if you choose to spend some of that extra power that you got to make this attack even more powerful. And then we have things like this, Playing with Fire. When an opponent uses a match, you gain 1 extra power, and matches cannot be used as attack anymore. So it slowly but surely curbs what your opponent can use the matches for. And then as you see here, when you use a defense skill, you may return 1 match card from your opponent's discard back to the match deck and draw an extra card. You don't want the matches in your opponent's discard pile. At the end of the day, you want them on top of their deck because you want them continuously playing them. Here we have it so that you gain an extra power whenever a match is used, and your opponent can't use matches for defense. So we use the matches for mobility here. And then last but not least, you gain 1 for matches, 1 extra power for matches, and then your opponent can't use it for movement. So if you go through all 3 of your stacks and you get to each of these bottom twists, eventually your opponent cannot use matches for anything, and you gain power for you gain a lot of power for it. Then we have her epic cards. So just the very first one, when you play it, just automatically puts 3 match cards from your match deck on top of your opponent's deck. Then you have things like this one, range 3, discard top 6 of opponent's deck, and then gain damage X. X is equal to the number of match cards discarded this way. So if you're like constantly bombarding your opponent's deck with matches, you're looking at getting some pretty good damage there. And then Infernal Overlord, range 1, damage X. X is equal to half the amount of power you currently have. Like I said, you're going to be building up power better than any character in this game. And so this is just a nice, powerful attack to take advantage of it. Then, of course, we have the 3 foil versions. And then the matches themselves, as you can see, this card can be used as a wild card, but is not a basic card. You cannot gain power from this card when you play it for an attack, defense, or move action. This card cannot be destroyed for any reason. And then to explain how Match Girl gets power for them, she has a passive ability on her character sheet that says whenever your opponent plays a match, you gain a power. So that's Match Girl. Next up, we have Red Riding Hood. She is supposed to be the basic character. This is the one that you're supposed to learn with because she's just the easiest to understand. And she's pretty straightforward. So if you look here, range 1, damage 1 plus, and then range 1, damage 1 plus. When you use your skill attack or move, you may discard a skill card from your hand to gain plus X. X is equal to the discarded skill card's level. So this is their level. You see level 1, level 2, level 3. Range 3, damage 3, very straightforward. You can place a card from, as an action, you can place a card from your hand onto this card. There can be no more than one card stored here. Basically just storing cards, so that's pretty cool. The energy shield just gives defense and an ongoing, defense and an ongoing. Each time your opponent inflicts damage on you, you may discard one skill card from your hand to reduce the damage by X. X is equal to the discarded card's level. So you kind of want to build up power, get high level attacks, defenses, and movements, and then utilize those to your advantage. Again, you can store cards. Range 1, damage 1, knockback. Some more knockback. When you use skill attack, skill move, you may discard one skill card from your hand to gain range plus X. X is equal to this. So you basically turn yourself into a sniper, which can be really good. She probably has the best range in this. Then we have our epics. So we double up on an attack. You can add 2 cards from any supply deck to your hand, which is incredible. Range 3 knockback, or range 3 damage 3 knockback the opponent 3 spaces. The opponent must then discard 3 cards from her hand. That's downright control-y. We have our foils of each of those. So the 2 characters, Match Girl and Snow White, are the only ones that I remember having a deck of their own. The only other character that has something outside of the normal setup for their character is Alice, who has a couple mini cards representing different forms that she takes. So now we're looking at Sleeping Beauty, and again, this one's just going to follow the same basic concept here. You're going to have 1 yellow starter card, 2 blue level 2 cards, a twist followed by 3 red level 3 cards, the final twist, and then it moves into the next deck. So skill move, skill defense, skill attack, and then behind that I'll have the epics and then the foil epics. So we have Groping Dark, then we have Grasping Dark. Then we have Mental Barriers, followed by Wrenching Dark. And then last but not least, we have Treating What Ails. So her gaining 5 HP, she is going to spend a lot of time dealing damage to herself. This is Sleeping Beauty for a couple of reasons. 1, when she deals damage to herself, she gets boosted effects, and 2, when she deals damage to herself, she gets awakening tokens, which brings her closer to awakening, which obviously brings her to our more powerful version of herself. And we have Shattering Chains. We have Shattering Bones. We have Blood Right. And then we have Shattering Souls. And then followed by Treating What Ails again. Then we have Inner Turmoil. We have Inner Rage. We have Bloodletting. We have Inner Fury. And then is also going to be followed by Treating What Ails. And then lastly, we have her epics, And They Woke Up. The Blood Renews. The Sleeper Wakes. And then we have the foil versions of these. And again, this character is asleep, and she receives awakening tokens as she takes damage. And when she awakes, she is temporarily awoken for a certain amount of time, and during that time, she becomes far more powerful than she already is. Next up, we're going to take a look at Alice. So Alice has mini cards involved with her. So I'm going to see if I can pull these guys out. Fortunately, they were right at the beginning. So these cards represent the Queen of Hearts, the Mad Hatter, and the Cheshire Cat. And depending on which form she takes, it boosts one type of basic skill, and it lowers another one. So if you're the Queen of Hearts, your attack cards are +1, but your movement cards are -1. The Mad Hatter is +1 to defense, -1 to attack, and then Cheshire Cat is +1 to movement, -1 to defense. So her idea is to dance between these stances and try and figure out a balance where you're getting the best, maximizing the best out of each of those stances with the cards that are in your hand, so that you can deliver really powerful attacks or very mobile movements and so on and so forth. So we got Curiously Agile, followed by Curiously Covert, followed by the twist We're All Mad Here, and then lastly Curiously Curious. Curiously Curious. And then the final twist, It's Showtime. Then in her defense skills, we got Magic Trick, followed by Mind Trick, followed by Wonderland, the twist, and then last but not least, Hat Trick. And again, It's Showtime. Then we have Deal the Cards in her attack slot, Cut the Cards, Off with Her Head, Rig the Cards, and then last but not least again, It's Showtime. Followed by her Epics Frabjous, Important Date, and A Game's Afoot, or The Game's Afoot. And then last but not least, obviously, the full art foil versions of each of those. So that is Alice. Again, she's just dancing between each of her forms. And the idea is to maximize the cards in your hand based on the stances and based on the effects of those cards in such a way as to make yourself a little bit more powerful or give yourself a better edge than your opponent. Next up, we have Mulan. Mulan is interesting because she actually has super low base defense, and since you cannot go past the base defense, once you hit that point, any extra defense that you gain is just kind of lost. But Mulan has a passive ability where she can discard defense cards from her hand to gain, I guess, temporary barriers that are very similar to having extra defense. She also benefits from having her opponent up against the edge of the arena. So if you're playing up against one side or the other, she's going to have beneficial effects from that. So like right here it says then place, or it says range 1, damage 1, knock back the opponent, movement spaces, which is basically a card that you attach to it. Then place yourself into one of her range 1 spaces. If she is on the edge of the fighting track, you may randomly discard a card from her hand. So it's just a really so that was no retreat, and it's just a way to control your opponent, but you have to be on the edge of the arena. Then followed by No Quarter, just a more powerful version. We have Enlightened Assault, and again, she uses chi to manipulate how powerful things are. Then we have No Mercy. And then last but not least, we have Gathering Storm. Then we have Diverted Fire. So again, we're using chi. We have Diverted Might. We have Evading Fate. We have Diverted Wrath. And then again, Gathering Storm. And then lastly, we have Underestimated, followed by Undeniable, followed by Channeled Chi, followed by Undiminished, and then last again, Gathering Storm. And then her epics, Honor's Thunder, Confronting Chaos, and Legend's Call. And then finally, the full art foil versions of each of those cards. So again, Mulan uses Chi, and she wants to have her opponent up against the edge of the arena in order to get the maximum benefit from her abilities. Next up, we are going to take a look at Kaeya. So Kaeya, when I played her, what I was gathering was that she can use attacks as she progresses as defenses, depending on the twist that you have available, and that she is an extremely defensive character. So you can withstand some pretty heavy hits from her. Her maximum defense is 6, and I think she's the only character whose maximum defense can actually go up, which makes her very tanky. And again, like I said, you can use attacks as defenses. So we're going to look at her cards: Focused Intent, followed by Focused Resolve, the twist Uncanny Instinct. So you can see right here, you gain max defense limit +1. So she goes from a 6 to a 7 just by having this card available. And then limit once per turn. If an opponent's defense is lower than yours, you may move her 1 space in any direction. So we get some mobility here, and this was the move action. So finally, followed by Focused Descent. And then lastly, Reflective Repose. Then we have Addled Echoes, +1 defense. Reveal the top card of your deck, add it to your hand if it was a defense card. Otherwise, discard it or place it back. Bygone Echoes. Blood Moon. You gain maximum defense limit +1, so there you go, another +1 to your defense. And during your refresh phase, you can draw 1 card for each 3 defense that has been reset. So if you don't end up getting your defense knocked out, for every 3 defense that you end up losing at the beginning of your turn, you get to draw an extra card. Then you have Divine Echoes, followed by Reflective Repose. And finally, we have Ascendant Light. This one gets more powerful the more defense you have. So again, you're building defense. We have Ascendant Glory. And then we have Swift Reprisal. Again, brings up the defense limit by 1. And then limit once per turn, you may play a defense card as an attack card. Okay, so I had it backward. You can play a defense card as an attack card of the same level. So you don't, when you're building the attack version of her, you don't even necessarily have to draft any attack cards, or you can minimize how many attack cards you're drafting by comparison to defense cards. By comparison to defense cards, so that you can maximize Swift Reprisal. And then last but not least, Ascendant Avatar. And then Reflective Repose. Then we have her epics. Which are just very powerful cards. And then, of course, we have the full art foil versions of each of those. So, Kaeya, again, she's a heavy defense, tanky type of character. Unless you deal with her very early on in the game, she can become a very hard character to take out, just based on those defenses. I think characters that would be able to succeed might be characters like Dorothy or maybe Sleeping Beauty in her awakened form, although it would be tough if they waited till late game. Next up, we have Dorothy. Dorothy is special because her passive on her own character card allows her to start the game with 1 epic card in her deck already. Okay, and her epic cards are the Lion, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man. And so it was called combo tokens. She uses these to spend combo tokens to do something. In this case, combo tokens for damage, combo tokens for drawing cards, or combo tokens to recover HP. And she gets the combo tokens via her skill cards throughout the course of the game. This means that when she passes her epic threshold, she's actually going to have a total of 2 epic cards in her deck and only 1 that's been discarded from the game forever. So she's the only character that I'm aware of that can have 2 epics at any given time. She also, like I mentioned before, is all about just getting as many of those combo tokens as possible so that when you do get your epic card, you can utilize it to the best of your ability. Now we have things like enemy sighted under the movement skills, followed by enemy in range, Apex Force approved is the twist, followed by enemy dispatched as the level 3 movement, and then last but not least, nowhere to hide. Then we have probing engaged, probing deeper, the twist more than machine, and then probing complete. And finally, nowhere to hide. We have target acquired, target locked, kill order affirmed, target neutralized, followed by nowhere to hide. And then again, earlier I showed you the lion, the scarecrow, the Tin Man, and their foil counterparts. So that's Dorothy. Next up we have Scheherazade. In this one, Scheherazade is the Weaver of Tales. The game insinuates that there are multiple forms of Scheherazade. This is just going to be one form of her. Her idea is to use fate tokens. These fate tokens will be placed on skill supply decks or basic supply decks, and they indicate marked decks that can either deal damage to your opponent or have other effects, if I remember correctly. Essentially, you want to chip away at your opponent by forcing your opponents to buy cards that are marked and dealing damage that way. So we have things like Deleted Dreams, followed by Deleted Memories. We have Hands of Fate as our twist. Deleted Existence. And then we have Caught in the Web. We have Engulfed in the Net. Saturated in the Net. Rewriting Desires as the twist. And Dissolved in the Net. Followed, of course, by Caught in the Web. Then we have The Watcher, the Manipulator, Formatting Thoughts as the twist, and then the Violator. Followed by, last but not least, the Caught in the Webs, which is the bottom of each of these. And then her epics are going to be Draining Addiction, Severed Pathway, and Cut from the System. And then we have our foil full art counterparts. So that's Scheherazade. Again, just manipulating the fate or manipulating fate tokens in order to deal damage based on what your opponents are buying throughout the course of the game. And then lastly, we're going to have the Little Mermaid, and she uses her tentacles. So the idea behind the Little Mermaid, and one of the things that I definitely played wrong with this character, is that you want to make her very mobile. And it's not necessarily that you're making the character mobile so much as you're making the tentacles that she has in play mobile. And what you're trying to do is force it in such a way that you are always on a tentacle and that your opponent is always on a tentacle, so that you can maximize the skills that you have available to their highest potential. So with her, we're going to have things like Siren's Call, followed by Siren's Song, followed by the Raging Tempest. This is the Twist, followed by Siren's Shriek, and the final, the Rising Tide, which basically adds a new tentacle. You can have up to 4 tentacles in the arena at any given time, depending on how quickly you go through your skill decks. Then we have Surging Wrath, Erupting Wrath, Mystic Echoes, Avenging Wrath, and then Rising Tide to add another tentacle. We have Encroaching Sea, followed by Invading Sea. Then we have Daughter of the Oceans. Then we have the Conquering Sea. And last but not least, the final Rising Tide. And then with her, she has epic cards, but her epic cards are actually played just like Twists. Once you unlock one of her epic cards, it becomes a passive like the Twists and does not actually get shuffled into the deck. And they do any numerous amount of things. In this case, your max HP is brought down to 18, but at the end of each of your turns, you heal 2 HP. So if you already are pretty low and you're building defensively, being at 18 might not be a bad thing. Plus the 2 HP regeneration might help. The next one we have is when a tentacle enters an opponent's space for any reason, the opponent loses 1 HP. When an opponent enters a space containing tentacles for any reason, she loses X HP, where X is equal to the number of tentacles in that space. So this one helps to make the tentacles a lot more effective in their chipping away at your opponent. And then finally, we have the Crack and Stirs. Move the current tentacles onto your Fable sheet. The damage inflicted on you each time is reduced by X. X is equal to the number of tentacles on your Fable sheet. Your skill cards now become their required basic cards of the same levels. And you must lose 1 HP each turn. So you get 4 automatic defense if you have all 4 of your tentacles in play. Not to mention your cap of 6 defense, which means you can defend yourself from up to about 10 damage. But each turn you're losing 1 HP, which cannot be mitigated by defense. So you will slowly but surely die if you do not find a way to kill your opponent. And then last but not least, all of your skill cards right here. This would stop being a skill attack and it would just become a normal attack, level 1 attack. This would become a normal level 2 attack. This would become a normal level 2 defense, and this would become a normal level 3 defense, and then a normal level 3 movement. So it turns all of your cards into basic skills, which you're just using at that point to move your character around and attack as often as possible. So that's if you go Kraken form. Like I said, I played it wrong. I did not build a very mobile build, and you need your tentacles to move with the Little Mermaid because you need your tentacles to be on you or on your opponent. And especially if your opponent is a character that can move you specifically, you don't want that to be the case. Not without having mobile tentacles. One of the last set of cards besides the basic skill cards we're going to take a look at is going to be these relic cards, and I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. We have Navigating Dreams. We have Alakazam. And the reason I'm going through these pretty quickly is because I have no idea how to play this mode of the game yet. We have Sold the Cow. So I don't have any experience with this. We have Snicker Snack, which is the sound of the Vorpal Sword. We have Tales Retold. We have Fairest of All. Spying the Future. Treasures Unlocked. I think that's it. No, I was wrong. Then we have Thirst No More. I believe that is the last one. The rest of these are... Oh, no, I was wrong. Again. We have His Command. This is the last one. Okay, so no more. So those are the relics. They're a different game mode. I don't know anything about that game mode. I do know that these mini cards go over the spots on the player mat. And that's pretty much the gist of what I know. Next up, I'm going to show you some of these basics. So we have basic cards that are going to be available in a pool for everyone. And these are limited pools. So once they run out, they run out. You have your level 3 attack, and they indicate exactly what they are. This will do 3 damage if you play it. You have your level 2 attack, which does 2 damage when you play it, and then you have your level 1 attack, which does 1 damage when you play it, and it also is going to help form your starting deck because you're going to have a certain amount of each of these in your deck. The thing you want to know about these, though, is that you can actually attach these to your attack skills, or you can attach basic defense skill cards to your defense skills, and you can attach basic movement cards to your movement skills to give them certain boosts. In the case of attacks, it generally increases the amount of the attack does. So if the attack does 3 damage plus whatever damage card you attach to it, if you attached a level 3 attack, it's going to do 3 damage plus 3 damage. And so that's how that works. And the other thing to understand is that when you play a basic card by itself, you're going to receive power equal to the level of that basic card. So if I played this basic card to attack my opponent for 3 and I did not attach it to a skill card, I'm going to gain 3 power for playing this card. However, if I attach this to a skill card, I'm not going to gain any power for it because it's being used by the skill card and not actually being used by itself. It's really important to understand that, because you can really damage yourself as far as how much power you gain per turn if you're not careful about what you're attaching and what you're just using downright for its basic ability. I'm trying to pull out the movement cards. Sorry if I sound funny. So as with the attack card, we're going to have one for movement as well. So we have the level 3 movement, followed by the level 2 movement, followed by the level 1 movement. You're going to have a couple of these level 1 movements in your deck, and then you can purchase either these level 2 or level 3s, as well as more level 1s if you want, throughout the course of the game. They're not like the poison deck where they have to be set in a specific stack. You're going to have a stack of level 3s off to the side, as well as a stack of level 2s and 1s. And then following suit in that, you're also going to have the same concept with defense cards. So you have your level 3 defense, followed by your level 2 defense, followed by your level 1 defense. And then last but not least, you are going to have a bunch of these wild cards. I think there's 18 in total. Wild cards count as one or the other or the other. Okay. They only count as one. You will only ever get 1 power from them. But you can play them as any of the following symbols. So they're a little bit more versatile when paying for your skill cards. Aside from that, for two power, they're pretty cheap to put in your deck. So if you're looking for versatility, this is the way to go. A lot of cards don't get benefits. They'll say something in the rules about how you can't use a wild for this or so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. But aside from that, I think that's it. That's everything that's in here. So that is Twisted Fables. And honestly, like I said, I picked it up because I ended up playing it with a friend when I went up to visit him. And while I had completely dismissed the Kickstarter for it, when I got a chance to actually sit down and play the game, it was a phenomenal game. It was super fun to play, despite the fact that all of the cards have roughly the same art. It didn't seem to take away from the game. The border itself being a different color helped me differentiate between which card was which. And I think that was more effective, especially when the cards themselves were the same card but with different power levels. I would rather them have the same art, but just different borders, so I knew which power level I was pulling. And it's the same with these guys as well, even though they're kind of just like okay, this has got some basic shields on it. It's really giving you all the information you need. This didn't have to have a great deal of phenomenal art on it. And in fact, it might have been too distracting if it had. So I'm really happy with how basic they made it, because I know what the card does and I can focus on the gameplay itself. So that is Twisted Fables. If you like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you have any comments or questions, or you just want to throw some clarifications out there, hit me up in the comments below. I will be removing negative comments, so just, don't. Just keep it classy. Yeah, if you guys feel the need to support me in what I do, hit me up on my Patreon as well under Uncommon Ramen. I do all of this in my free time, so any amount of support I can get can help me bring more of this content, and even more often. And yeah, I guess that's it. Until next time, guys. Peace.